All right. Is Adam 6,000 years old? Is Adam 6,000 years old? So we've beaten up on the theistic evolutionists a little bit. Now we're going to beat up on our young creationist friends who believe that Adam is 6,000 to 10,000 years old. I don't agree with this view either. Now, to be fair, if you add up all the ages from Adam to the flood is 1,600 years, and then from Noah to Abraham is 365 years. So Adam to Abraham would be roughly 2,000 years. Abraham to today is roughly 4,000 years. He was 2000 BC. That means Adam to today is 6,000 years. So 6,000 years ago is the existence of Adam. I don't hold that view. How old does Adam go back? I don't have a clue. I really don't. The Bible never adds the years of the genealogies together, for one. That should bother you. Like in 1 Kings 6, it adds up the time from when the Jews were in Egypt, and then when they get into the Promised Land, and then Solomon builds the temple in 967 BC, and it's been, 480 years. It adds up all that time. It doesn't do that here. It doesn't. So this whole idea that we need to add all of this together, at the very least, we should say this isn't in the text of Genesis. This is an inference of the interpreter. The Hebrew words for begetting or being a father of have a broad semantic range. Like if I said the word running, what does that mean? If you can't tell, I've been sick and hacking up a lung, and my nose has been running. Later this year, I'm going to be running for president. But before I do that, I should probably get in shape and do some running outside. But then when I get back, I hope my refrigerator's running so I can get some nice cool water, and so on and so forth. Running has a broad semantic range in English. Same is true of the word yalad, to beget in the King James, or to become the father of. So-and-so became the father of, yalad. He begot. We don't really have an English word for this. He begat, he begot. In Hebrew thought, an individual, by the act of giving birth to a child, becomes a parent or ancestor of all who will be descended from this child. In fact, the term may show the beginning of an individual's relationship to any descendant. Any descendant. Any descendant. You could be the father of, you could beget any descendant from your line. What about the word father, of, this or ab? This can be translated as father or as forefather. The term designates primarily begetter, though by extension ancestor and metaphorically an originator, chief, or associate in some degree. There was no word for grandfather in Hebrew. Yet we clearly see examples where it's the father's father and they call him the ab. Think of one example. Excuse me. Genesis chapter 10, verse 21. This is one of the genealogies, right? That's supposed to add up to 6,000 years. Shem was the father of all the sons of Eber. Well, let's look at that. Shem is up here, and he's the father of Eber, but also all of Eber's descendants. So even within Genesis 10, what are we seeing? That you can be the forefather of several generations and all the descendants. They aren't even listed. There could be more. That we see this in Egyptian literature, where there are 2,000-year gaps between pharaohs. We see it in Sumerian literature. The idea was not chronology. The idea was genealogy. From where did you originate, not when did you originate. All right, clear gaps exist in the genealogies. I just mentioned one. Here's another one, Moses. There are 2 generations from Kohath to Moses. However, Kohath lived during the time of Jacob. That's 350 years before Moses. And yet all we have is a 2-generation gap. Is that a biblical error? No, the Bible isn't concerned with chronology. It's concerned with genealogy. Was Moses descended from Kohath? Moses was just one of his descendants out of 8,600 male descendants. This is talking about a substantial amount of time, longer than the United States has been a nation, and it's only described as 2 generations in Exodus chapter 6. What about Shebuel? 2 generations from Shebuel to Moses. Yet Shebuel lived 1000 BC and Moses lived 1400 BC. So Shebuel is in the reign of David. But there's 2 generations. That's a 400-year gap between the two. Well, I could go on. Ezra 6. Jesus is called the son of Abraham, the son of David. That's a 2,000-year gap, a 1,000-year gap. Matthew 1:8 goes from Uzziah to Azariah. But you flip over to 1 Chronicles 3:11, and there's actually 4 generations they skipped over. Well, symmetry exists in the genealogies. I think that should get you to question whether these are supposed to be taken as strictly chronological. Genesis 5 and 10, we get 10 genealogies from Adam to Noah, 10 genealogies from Noah to Terah, 10 genealogies were common in the old Babylonian period. They're clearly selecting people in these genealogical records. They're not giving an exhaustive treatment. Finally, strict chronology, if you're going to take these strictly, it leads to absurdities. For one, Noah would be living during the time of Abraham. Now, I don't know if you find that absurd. Maybe you're like, well, maybe he just lived that long. He, lived another 350 years, and he was coexisting with Abraham. Really? I mean, I don't really have anything more to say than that. I don't really have a good argument other than just, seriously? Like, you think Noah and Abraham were living at the same time? How about this? The flood, you can line this up if you're taking a strict chronological view. This would have occurred during the middle of the 6th Egyptian dynasty and the Sumerian civilization. Sumer is one of the first, if not the first, civilization. The Egyptians were a powerhouse civilization. This would mean that you need to have a flood go through and wipe all of it out, and then it gets rebuilt like the next year. It's like business as usual. There's no gap in any of the records. You just have succession of pharaohs and kings.